Mariah Carey, a famous singer, went to court not to sing, but to tell the truth. The courtroom became super quiet. Her coming in was a huge shock, especially because the case already had lots of wild videos and made-up stories. She promised to tell the truth and shared a scary secret. Diddy supposedly told her when no one else was around. "If they find out what I really do, it's over." Her voice, usually for big concerts, filled the room. Mariah had stayed quiet for a long time because of money offers and remembering a night in 2003, but she finally got brave enough to talk about what happened. What happened between her and Diddy wasn't about love or fighting, just about telling a secret. When she stood up, she made it clear she wasn't scared anymore. Here's how Mariah Carey helped everyone see what Diddy was really like inside, and how her words surprised everyone in the courtroom. The court helper called out the next name on the list, Mariah Carey. The whole courtroom was still for 5 whole seconds. Even the person typing couldn't type. Mariah showed up suddenly, wearing a sharp black suit with gold parts and dark sunglasses that hid her face, like magic. With her helpers standing by her like royal guards, she slowly walked to the stand where witnesses speak. When Diddy looked up, his face twitched a little, like a blink or a lip twist. He didn't expect this. The judge usually just nodded a little, but this wasn't just any witness. It was Mariah Carey, a global star who seemed to have everything to lose and little to gain. She came to court to tell her story in the Diddy trial. News started screaming as cameras outside rushed to film it. With a steady, determined look, she took off her sunglasses as she got to the stand. Someone in the crowd whispered, "She's actually doing it." Then the lawyer asking questions stood up, cleared her throat, and asked the first question. "Dear Ms. Carey, can you please tell the court about your relationship with Mr. Combs?" Mariah didn't even flinch. "We were just friends," she explained. "Just 2 people in the same business. Not super close friends, not even work friends," she added. "Up until 2003, we got along fine." Suddenly, everyone looked at Diddy, who was sitting very still at his table. Even when his lawyer leaned in close, Diddy didn't say anything. He just sat there stiffly, waiting. "I wasn't asked to come here to talk about rumors," Mariah added. "I never thought I'd have to say something under oath, but here I am because of what I was told in private." The people on the jury leaned forward. The room became super quiet. The way she was talking changed. This famous singer wasn't going to say anything small or hidden. She said, "I've waited over 20 years to say this," while looking Diddy right in the eyes. Before 2003, Mariah and Diddy had seen each other many times. On music video sets, at award shows, at fancy dinners for businesses, and more. Even though they weren't working together, they had the same helpers, rivals, and fans. Mariah said she saw Diddy at many parties from the late 90s to the early 2000s. She said he was always there, in every talk and room, sometimes without her even knowing or agreeing. She remembered something from 2001 at the MTV Video Music Awards. At a party after the show, Diddy supposedly came up to her and said her new album was great. Before saying something weird, "You're too clean for this place," he told her he cared about her career. She just ignored it and laughed it off. But that strange comment stayed in her mind for a long time. As she kept talking, she said how super competitive the music business was back then. Being friends with people was more important than just making music. Mariah said that being seen with Diddy made you feel safe, but some people felt the opposite. She also said there were whispers, too many to ignore, about secret parties after big events, and about people having to sign papers promising not to tell secrets before going into certain rooms. Mariah said it was all about surviving. The lawyers asking questions asked, "And if you said no, you didn't get invited again. And then, eventually, you didn't get invited to award shows either." Behind the scenes, one name kept coming up: Diddy. Not as someone who helps or a rich boss, but as someone building a new kind of powerful group. In public, Mariah never said anything bad about it. She didn't have to. But she did in court, admitting that by 2003, she felt uneasy, and it all ended on one bad night. Mariah spoke louder. She moved a little closer to the microphone and started, telling about the night of July 19, 2003, when she was invited to a fancy work get-together in the Hamptons. She said she was super tired after filming a music video, but her manager thought it would be a great thing to do. They said all the important people would be there. The host, Diddy, was someone rebuilding his brand. The house, as she remembered, was a big house by the ocean, with dark windows and 2 security stops. She said the guest list had famous people, rich media bosses, and some strange faces who weren't performers but just watching. When asked if she was trying to leave, Mariah said, "Yes, by 10:20 p.m. At that moment, Diddy came up to her. He seemed calm and peaceful. "Are you interested in seeing the special VIP lounge?" he asked. She said she was tired, but he insisted. He said he needed to clear up some confusion, so she went with him into a side room off the main hallway. 2 bodyguards stood outside the door while the room was dimly lit and had soft, fancy chairs. She said, "He drank a drink and kept staring at me for what felt like forever. If they find out what I really do, it's over." The courtroom went silent as he said it. He wasn't smiling. Mariah went on to say he was serious. She wanted to know what he meant, because he said it like someone who had already imagined his whole world falling apart. That's when he changed the topic. She kept trying to leave. He briefly blocked the door. Then he promised to take care of you, and his smile showed he had a hidden plan. "Stay silent." Without saying a word, she left the room. "I've lived with the memory of that night for 20 years, she said in court. "I will not be silent anymore." Mariah said in her story that she left the Hamptons house before daylight the next morning. The house was strangely quiet. She walked silently past the security guards. With her longtime helper driving, she quietly went back to Manhattan in her car. "What I had just seen was completely new to me," she told the court. "It felt like a warning, like I wasn't supposed to be there." But that wasn't the end of the warning. Around lunchtime, a hotel worker came to her door at her fancy apartment in the St. Regis Hotel, carrying a black package. He said a special delivery person had just dropped it off with her name on it. Nothing else, just her silver initials and no address to send it back to. Inside the package were perfectly clean dollar bills, neatly tied with gold bands, adding up to $100,000. There was no note explaining it, but a smaller envelope was under the money with a handwritten note that said, "Regarding the time you have available, enjoy the evening by yourself. Thanks, Ease." Mariah said she felt like her stomach dropped. And it wasn't just the money. Her manager told her to send the envelope back right away because of how the message sounded, and because it felt like she was being bought. But the phone number on the card was disconnected. Her team later checked with the hotel's security and found out the delivery person came straight from a black SUV that was rented by people who worked for Diddy's music company, Bad Boy Entertainment. "I didn't want the money," Mariah said in Fijuana court. "Whatever it was, I needed answers, or, even better, to get far away from that whole situation. But instead, I felt terrified." Then she put the whole package in a hotel safe. A few weeks later, she mailed it back to the house, without a return address. But she wrote, "You know where this belongs. She kept quiet about it for years, even from her best friends. "Something like that happens, and you try to forget about it," she said. But that memory came rushing back when she saw Diddy come into the courtroom months ago, facing charges of trying to get money by force, hurting people, and more. "I felt like I had to say something." In the end, she decided she couldn't let the secret stay hidden anymore. Everyone looked at the lawyer's next question. "Dear Ms. Carey, did you hear from any other ladies at the 2003 party who were worried? Or who just disappeared?" Mariah hesitated. For the first time during her testimony, she looked really upset. "One was there," she said. "She wasn't famous. Art wasn't her thing. She worked in public relations or marketing, I think." Mariah only remembered the woman as Lana, but she told me that after their short talk, she felt out of place at the party. The woman had said something about accidentally going into a side room. She claimed to have seen a camera, lights, and a person standing over a man as he signed a paper. She quickly left the room, but Mariah realized Lana was missing later that night. No one talked about her. 2 months later, a strange message came on Mariah's studio answering machine. A lady's voice mumbled, "I shouldn't have seen that." They said, "No one should talk to me." They warned, "You should be careful, too." Later that day, an intern at the studio accidentally erased the message. Still, she couldn't forget the voice. She could never be sure if it was Lana or not. In early 2004, she asked her boss to find out about the woman. "She's gone," he told her. "She's disappeared." No new job listings. Her social media was wiped clean. He warned her not to keep looking into it. She told the court, "I knew something was wrong, but I also knew how the music business worked. Those who caused trouble didn't stick around." The court asked her for proof that Diddy was connected to Lana disappearing. She said there was no solid proof. "Just fear. The same fear that kept me quiet for 20 years. However, the lawyers used her story to connect a complicated web of bad things, like helpers disappearing, dancers who wouldn't talk, and now a pop star who might have been paid to ignore everything. Even though Mariah had her own tough times and struggles after her breakdown in 2001, her career kept getting bigger by 2004. But she said that something changed behind the scenes. For specific events, the phone stopped ringing, she explained. Only the ones connected to his close group, like private fancy parties and awards given by record labels. Not all of them. For a moment, she thought it was just bad luck that she suddenly wasn't on the list. But after that, the calls started. Soft, not pushy, almost friendly. "Mariah, you're amazing," said one famous boss from a big record label. "That said, I hope you don't bring up that evening again." "Not healthy" was a phrase that stayed in her mind for a long time. As she told the jury, she got a second message from a friend they both knew, saying that bad things happen to women who talk too much. "I was disgusted," she said. "I was furious. I was also very smart. Knowing when a warning is real is important if you want to get this far in the job." She then talked about seeing Diddy at an awards show in 2006. He was surrounded by younger artists and was smiling and excited. When she looked at him across the room, he froze. After that, he smiled at her. A cold, calculating smile. "All I needed to know was that smile," she said. "It wasn't about being charming. It was about power." "You stayed silent," he seemed to say. She had no more contact with him after that. In that moment, she knew she had been right to stay quiet. However, she realized that staying quiet was no longer an option as she watched the trial unfold in 2025, saw other women come forward, and saw the dark parts of the music business start to fall apart. "I'm no longer scared of him," she said confidently. "When the truth comes out, the system that protected him loses all its power. So I have no fear of it." As the lawyers leaned in for a simple follow-up question, the feeling in the courtroom changed again. "Dear Ms. Carey, did you hear Mr. Combs threaten anyone else?" Mariah nodded slowly and let out a breath. "I think so." She told about something she had never talked about before, but now was the right time. In 2005, she was in Manhattan visiting a studio to work on a song with someone when she overheard Diddy talking to a young female R&B singer, a rising star known for her church music roots and strong singing. Mariah didn't want to say who the artist was publicly, but she did say that the first letters of her name and her career matched a former top singer. The talk happened in a side room next to the main studio. Mariah had come early hoping to see her producer, but she accidentally heard Diddy's voice through a small divider. "You remember who gave you those records," he supposedly said, as she told in court, "Whoever owns your music is remembered by you. Don't act like you can do whatever you want. There are rules in this business." He then said, "If you think you can walk away, remember what happened to the last girl who tried." Simple. Mariah stepped back in shock as he spoke more softly, but with anger. For fear of being accused of lying or getting back at her, she didn't say anything about it publicly. But then, months later, that very artist canceled her tour, didn't show up to an awards ceremony, and disappeared from public view. Mariah said to the judge, "For Mariah, she just disappeared. Plus, nobody ever publicly asked why, as everyone was aware. Each and every one of us did." That comment was very important. With his mouth closed and no expression on his face, Diddy sat still at the defense table. The harm had already been done, even though his lawyers leaned in for quiet advice. "I should have spoken up then," Mariah said. "It was terrifying. Maybe I was just being overly suspicious." This part of her story wasn't just for her. It was for every artist who never got a chance to speak. However, now that I've seen it, I know it was true. This wasn't just a trial. It was a time for things to be set right. And the people watching seemed to understand that at that moment. The audience had already gotten comfortable for Mariah's ninth part of her testimony. The news reporting was very slow. The jury seemed truly touched. It looked as if even the judge was uneasy as he moved in his chair. Even though Mariah stayed calm, she started talking about things that suggested there were secret plans to cover things up. She said, "There were files that people told me not to look at. Contracts, bills, agreements made under strange names, things that didn't make sense." In 2008, she said she asked a former helper to look into an event that Diddy had helped put on, which wasn't shown on TV for some reason, even though it was a huge show. The helper found what looked like a network of fake companies whose only job was to hide payment information. "We don't dig into that," was the direct answer from the boss when her staff brought it up. "You shouldn't either," the courtroom whispered, as Mariah explained how the growing pressure to stay quiet got stronger as she asked more questions. There were threats against her publicist involving secret studio videos, anonymous hints about possible scandals, and rumors that old tabloid stories might come back if she kept digging. The next night was the 2010 award show. Mariah was asked to give Diddy an award for his life's work. Mariah said she chose not to. 3 chances to get paid for advertisements mysteriously disappeared within a week, she said. They made no attempt to contact or provide an explanation. They simply became unconscious, she said. The defense objected, saying that what she was saying was just guessing. However, the judge allowed her to continue because it fit a pattern. "What happened after that?" the lawyer asked. Mariah looked straight ahead. When no one ever asked me to tell my story, I thought it was best to wait, and I would not hold anything back when that day came. Mariah Carey didn't whisper her final statement in court. There was no big emotion. I am not here to talk about suffering again. It was very serious and sharp. The world now knows just who Diddy is. And I'm here to tell you because I believe in the power of the truth. Her testimony ended with a moment of silence. Apparently, even the court reporter wasn't shaken. Mariah got down from the witness stand, and her security guards rushed towards the exit. Avoiding reporters' questions, she stayed silent. She didn't wave. There was no smile on her face. She looked like someone who had just thrown a small stone into a calm lake, simple and graceful. There was a crazy media rush outside the courthouse. Hashtags like Mariah testifies and Diddy trial truth started being popular all over the world. Some news people and talk shows praised her bravery, while others wondered what else she might have kept secret. Diddy went back inside and sat down at the table. His lawyers watched in shocked silence. No one blinked as the judge called for a break. The way people talked about it changed later that night when Mariah's statement was shown on all the big TV channels. This famous court case was about the downfall of a powerful person, with the pop queen starting it all. She sang the highest note and broke the silence. That sums up what happened in the days after Mariah Carey's testimony. A change that was felt across the whole entertainment business, not just in the courtroom. Everyone from fans to bosses, to agents, to music makers, to old friends started to think about their choice to stay quiet. Nobody wanted to be found on the wrong side of an invisible line after everything was said and done. Mariah Carey's famous quote, "If they find out what I really do, it's over," was used everywhere. In news articles, TikTok videos, late-night interviews, and investigative shows. What used to be just Hollywood gossip is now a key part of the lawyer's case. Also, rumors started flying around behind the scenes. Two former bosses from Diddy's record company supposedly agreed to tell their stories secretly. Rumors said someone who had worked as an assistant at Diddy's company and helped with red carpet events posted a mysterious message on Instagram saying, "Some people silenced me, others paid me." An unknown source told Rolling Stone magazine that if she was brave enough to speak, maybe it's time we all were. I kept quiet, but that was all. Justice will happen. Even famous people who had always stayed neutral suddenly changed their minds. Many talk shows praised Mariah for her bravery. Famous people shared parts of her testimony with the simple words, "Respect." Old-timers in the music business quietly deleted pictures of themselves with Diddy, showing they were clearly separating themselves from the star who used to seem unbeatable. Still, the effects were even bigger inside the courtroom. Clearly, the jury was a bit nervous. The lawyers, feeling braver, moved to call other witnesses, like former tour managers and security guards, to testify. The defense team's attempt to fix the damage, which was to make Mariah seem like just a good storyteller, didn't work, because everyone could see Mariah wasn't tricking anyone. She didn't need to lie. She didn't need money. She didn't need fame. She wasn't promoting a new song or project. She came to court hoping the truth would be found. Instead of running away from the problem, she decided to walk right into the storm. That made her dangerous, but not in a gossip magazine way. Instead, she was dangerous because she spoke the truth and broke the silence. The kind of danger that makes places built on fear fall apart. An unnamed jury member supposedly said, "When she looked at him, it was like she was finally free, and he knew it." The courtroom had seen more than just someone telling their story. It had watched a big change. Mariah Carey is the kind of person who can pull back the curtain, and no one can put it back. So, one thing leading to another had already started.